Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Coach the Coach Radio. Brought to you by the Business RadioX Ambassador Program, the no-cost business development strategy for coaches who want to spend more time serving local business clients and less time selling them. Go to brxambassador.com to learn more. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Coach the Coach Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us John Jennings with Inspired Business Concepts. Welcome, John.
Hey, Lee. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us a little bit about Inspired Business Concepts. How are you serving folks?
Well, I formed this company 3.5 years ago after doing coaching inside corporations for many years. And, I work with just a whole variety of folks, from executives doing executive coaching to small and medium-sized business owners, mostly in the tech sector and healthcare sectors, but also do a little bit of everything else as well, like most folks. And so I'm just, right now, I'd say what I'm doing is helping people navigate this new normal that we're in, and figure out how to scale their business, restart their business, get over some of the hurdles they were facing, and working on mindset. I've got a lot of burnout people who are kind of frustrated, and so I always say I try to help business owners experience the joy and satisfaction that they should be experiencing as business owners.
Now let's talk a little bit about your corporate background. Was coaching something that was part of the culture at the organizations that you were part of? Was that something that only like the high-level executives got to experience, or was it something that kind of trickled throughout the organization?
At two of the organizations I was at, which were both Fortune 500 companies, coaching wasn't, we didn't necessarily use the term coaching, but, called it mentoring or whatever, we're very much part of it. In fact, 20 years ago, dating myself here, but 20 years ago or so, I was at a company that really felt like, we weren't doing a great job of bringing those high performing, high potential individual contributors into leadership and management roles very effectively. And so I actually created a coaching and mentoring program targeted at that group. So that was kind of one of my first, adventures into this kind of concept.
So now, are you seeing more and more organizations kind of take advantage of this modality and helping more people using this kind of, whether it's like kind of that mentoring, as you mentioned, or a more formal coaching program? Are you seeing that as more accepted and more prevalent?
I think it is. I've just recently signed on a client that's with a major national medical company. And, she just found me locally and is, funding this through her, her company is going to reimburse her for it. Now she's at an executive level, so that, is maybe easier to do, but yeah, I'm certainly seeing that in some cases.
Now, when you left the corporate world and decided to go kind of into your own practice like this, was that a difficult transition?
Well, it wasn't a one step. So I left big corporate in 2010, during the kind of, I survived the first couple of years of the economic downturn there, but finally got caught in that. Went in January 2010, went in for my performance review for what I thought was an outstanding year, and it really was, and found an HR sitting in the room instead of my boss and went, I know what this is about. I found myself unemployed for the first time since college, and actually went home. I tell people I went home and slept like a baby because that those handcuffs that, the corporate opportunities tend to kind of put on you were gone. And so I went into small business and worked and served in small businesses for the next 7 or 8 years. Helped build some new business units in one case, helped a startup get off the ground in another, created some new product, did some product development, just different things, all kind of along my line of being a turnaround, business builder kind of guy. And so did that for several entrepreneurial kind of endeavors over 7 or 8 years, and then finally decided it was time to launch out on my own, and did that in I guess it was 2018.
Now, any advice for the folks coming from corporate that are kind of exploring a coaching, transitioning into being a coach? Is there kind of some do's and don'ts that you would recommend?
Well, so it's a personal decision, and I think everybody has to make their own mind up. I would do a lot of due diligence and talk to people who are doing the type of work you want to do. That's kind of critical. And also, don't believe the hype. This isn't necessarily the easy way of making a buck. I'd say the first 18 months was extraordinarily stressful, getting things off the ground. And then just as everything was clicking and humming along, we had a global pandemic that set things back for several months. So it was a pretty challenging start, but I look back now and man, I'm so grateful that I did it. Glad I did it when I did before the pandemic. One thing I would say is when I was thinking of doing this, I went out and part of my due diligence was to talk to a number of people from my past, people that I felt respected me and knew me. And some of those people were from corporate world and some of them were more entrepreneurial. And I got frustrated by several of the people in the corporate world I talked to who would say, you're nuts. Why are you going to do that? How, they were just, they were just really shooting the whole idea down, just telling me I was crazy to even think about doing something like this. And it really, kind of caused me to take a little pause. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was in a similar kind of business and just mentioned this to him. And he said, John, let me tell you something. Somebody told me years ago when I was, facing this decision, he said, don't ever ask for directions from someone who hasn't been where you're going. And I thought that was brilliant. Don't ever ask for directions from someone who hasn't been where you're going. You wouldn't do that around anything else in life. So why do you do that about striking off on an entrepreneurial endeavor? If a person has spent their life in corporate IT or whatever, they're not going to understand why, even the mindset behind why you would even think about doing something like this. And so once I kind of had that in mind, I realized that the people from my past that were in the corporate sector, they're good people, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but they don't understand this idea of being an entrepreneur and literally building a business from the ground up is something that's completely foreign to them.
Right. Well, it's a different skill set to kind of manage an existing entity and being a cog in a machine and then starting something from a blank sheet of paper. Those aren't the same skills.
Yeah. And I was just fortunate that I did enough in the corporate world. I was always kind of the create a new team or turn around a failing team or take a project that was failing and figure it out. So I kind of had that entrepreneurial kind of mindset, in a corporate setting, but it was the entrepreneurial mindset also that kept getting me in trouble. In the corporate.
Exactly. That's not always as valued as you would think it is.
Yeah, I use that. It's easier to get forgiveness than permission. One too many times.
I live that too. I am right there with you. Now, in your work, what is typically the pain that your client is having or your prospective client is having where John is the right guy to call?
Well, so on the business side, a lot of for business coaching, the business owners, they're frustrated. They're stressed over what COVID has done to them. They're still trying to figure things out. They may have survived last year because of PPP and other things, but they're worn out and they're just exhausted. And their sales are still going slow in a lot of areas. And lot of my clients are in the B2B space and healthcare space, and those spaces just don't move fast, and they're moving even slower right now because of COVID and things like that. And so they're just frustrated and tired. On the executive side, my executive coaching clients are typically people who have just recently elevated into an executive role over the last year or two, and they're working on things like, what's my leadership style? Do I have an executive presence? Do people respect me the way I need them to respect me, and things like that? And I'm just helping them build their personal brand, build their style, develop their relationship with their teams and peers, and that sort of thing. So kind of two different sets of needs, and kind of two different approaches as well.
So now when you're working with the business owner, how do you or do you stay in the lane of, okay, coaching is me asking questions, helping you kind of be the best you can be, versus consultant who is kind of rolling up my sleeves and kind of getting in there and helping?
Yeah, so I do some consulting as well. In fact, I'm sitting right now here in an office I have at a client where I'm doing some product development consulting, but I'm doing less and less of that the more coaching I do. I just define it up front, that's not my role. And if there's a consulting role that needs to be filled, a lot of times I'll try to bring in somebody I know that might fill those roles, but I don't try to fill them myself, unless it's truly a short-term thing. There's occasionally I might take a short-term thing, but yeah, I think we just define it up front what it's about.
Now, how do you kind of help that person who maybe is new to coaching kind of be vulnerable enough to share the important stuff and be accepting of maybe the hard truths that that's your job to share?
Can you ask that again? I want to make sure
for some people, coaching sounds good until you tell them something they don't want to hear. And then, they might take it personally. They might get defensive. Yeah. They're not as kind of vulnerable in the right kind of vulnerable mindset they have to be in order to really get the most out of this.
Yeah. That's actually, those blind spots happen all the time. In fact, that's kind of a personal interest of mine. Actually, I'm writing a book on that kind of idea, that business owners don't know what they don't know. And a lot of times they don't know it because people won't tell them. Or in other cases, it's because they don't hear it when people do tell, because they don't want to hear it. And so, I have been in that situation where, through the coaching, through the conversation, it's come clear that there's a problem. I find that if I'm the one that has to tell them it's a problem, then it doesn't go over so well. So as coaches, I think we really have to be careful to avoid prescribing, the solution. One of the, painstaking tasks we have to do sometimes as coaches is to continue to ask the questions until the client gets to the point where they realize on their own that they've got, a problem, something that they need to deal with. And whether that's, I'd say that one of the most common ones I run into is these, entrepreneurial business owners who constantly have a new idea, constantly trying something different, constantly want to, try something new and different, which is, that's part of the beauty of an entrepreneur, right? You love having entrepreneurs that are creative and innovative and everything else. But, the flip side is they don't sometimes stay in their lane where they're good and grow in a smart way. And so I'll give an example. I had a manufacturing client that was really, really solid in one area, and they were toying with going into some completely different product lines. And we said, why do you want to do that? You're going to have to bring in completely different salespeople, different management people. It's a completely different way of thinking. Let's look at what your business is today, and why it's so good. They dominate their market. They're not the cheapest price in town or in the country. They're not the cheapest in town, but yet people continue to come to them. And so we stepped back and looked at that and realized that there was a certain value add component that they were doing in their services for their clients that those clients were willing to pay a premium for. And so when they took that step back, they realized that was really their market, was clients who would pay extra for this higher level of service. And so we evaluated the market and found a couple of parallel markets, if you will, that had the same kind of mindset, same kind of clientele, same kind of approach to how they did business. And what they found was they could expand into parallel markets much more easily and stay really still within their wheelhouse. All they're doing is widening their lanes instead of going into a completely different direction. And once they came to that conclusion, we in the first year they added 15% to their bottom line, to their top line, with very little effort. And that's smart growth versus just trying anything that will come along.
Now, do you find that folks that go through those exercises and you're really kind of poking at their idea and you're, playing devil's advocate, you're really kind of making them defend the choices? Is it something that when someone self-selects to be a coaching client, that they're already of the mindset of, okay, this is part of what I get, and then I'm good with that? Or do they still kind of put up a defensive front when you're, asking some hard questions?
Oh yeah, they still put up a defensive front because it's their baby you're criticizing. And so when they feel you're doubting their vision, then some will take it personally. Hopefully they'll get over that, and I'll remind them if they start to, that this is why you hired a coach. You didn't hire me to be your yes man, to nod at you. You have those, right? Most business owners have plenty of people who will sit there and nod and agree with them, because they don't want to rock the boat. What they don't have is someone who will be still kind and friendly and everything else, but will ask them honest, sincere questions. I have a client who she's in the IT space, has a great company, specific niche, doing quite well, and was just convinced that there was something she could do with a drone license. And I kept asking her, what are you going to do with it? Specifically, what are you going to do with this? And she kept coming back going, I don't know. I just think it sounds interesting. And we kept pursuing that, kept talking about it. And eventually, after about 6 months or so, she realizes that that was just kind of a temporary dream she had. She was just trying to justify some other interest. And I think she's moved off that finally. But yeah, sometimes an owner, will keep those ideas going because they're committed to it. They've convinced themselves that they've got a brilliant idea no one else has thought of. And if they can convince me, I'll be right on there with them. But if they can't, I'll continue to question them about it.
Now, you mentioned you're writing a book. How did that kind of book idea come about? Is it for your own kind of thought leadership and marketing for your own firm? Was it something that you've always wanted to kind of dig deeper in? What was the kind of genesis of the idea of writing a book?
Well, I've always kind of had an interest in writing. I do blog. I don't blog as much as I used to, but I wrote a lot of blogs. I've always kind of had a creative writing kind of mindset, not fiction, but business related. I've always been a good writer in business as far as writing proposals and contracts and all that kind of stuff. Not legalistic contracts, but just user manuals and you name it. Just through the years. And so my wife and others have told me several times, you ought to write. And I never it was just one of those things where I think imposter syndrome, start coaching myself here, probably imposter syndrome comes in. Oh, I'm not worthy. Who's going to buy a book from me? That sort of thing. And And then the other is just over the past, several years, as I've been in this coaching role and the roles leading up to it, I realized that I've had just tons of good experiences that when I share them with people, they're always feel like they're very insightful. And so, I've always just been told I'm a good storyteller and that sort of thing. And so, talking about blind spots, talking about things that business owners need to know about, need to hear about, has kind of led down this path of writing something that hopefully a business owner that would read it would recognize maybe some gaps, some blind spots in their own mind. And if you're a coach or a team member in a company, you might read it and get some ideas on how to approach your leadership on gaps and blind spots that you're seeing. And so that's it's gonna be interesting. It's taking shape. I'm probably 25-30% through drafting the first manuscript, working with an editor and that sort of thing. So still early, probably a few months down the road before I have a whole lot to say about it. But it's going to be exciting.
Well, before we wrap, can you share a story maybe you mentioned a few kind of anecdotes before, but maybe a story where somebody did have a blind spot, you were able to kind of insert yourself and help them maybe kind of revisit it or kind of spin it a different way so that they can reach a new level?
Yeah. Well, the one that kind of it's really kind of stimulated the book writing thing was a client that I work with quite a bit. I've been doing some coaching, strategic advising, some other things with them. And about just pre-COVID, I was hired by them first to develop a strategic plan, which we did. And then I was retained for ongoing strategic plan accountability, kind of ongoing traction, kind of not traction. I don't want to get in trouble with the EOS people, not a traction coach, but along that line of the ongoing accountability and that sort of thing. And so they hired me to do that. And then one of the things they asked me to do, because I have a background in process reengineering and improving processes and such, they asked me to take a look at some key areas of their business. And so we went through that. And then there was one area of the business that was kind of the CEO's pet area. It's kind of an area that he felt very passionate about. He felt it was a differentiator for them. But I got the feeling when I was talking to other folks in the company that nobody wanted anything to do with it. And so the CEO actually went on vacation, went on a cruise, and I was supposed to, when he came back, have an update for him. And so while he was gone, I met with a consultant that was running that area and really found out that it was a complete mess. There was no way this process, as it was designed, was going to make money. In fact, it was losing money. It was just going to keep losing money. And it was one of those things where the more customers that came on, the more money they were going to lose. And it just wasn't a good situation for anybody. And so when the business owner comes back and we sit down, and I won't go into all the details around how it unfolded, but when we told him that basically this wasn't going to work, he was kind of shocked. It was like we'd told him his baby was ugly, and I actually thought for a moment he was going to fire me. But as it turned out, COVID hit right after that. It kind of took a back seat. About 6 months later, I'm still there, still doing some coaching and other things in the company. And he said, John, I want to relaunch that service. I still believe in it. I said, okay. And he goes, would you consider it, designing it, building it? And I said, yeah, I think I would. And so I've worked with them over the past 9 months to essentially build from the ground up a new product based on better assumptions, better logic, and now we've got a product that will not only sell but also is profitable for the company. And so, I've kind of earned that reputation here with them, and can do a lot of different things with them now. Probably be moving away from the consulting piece of that, but still doing a lot of the coaching and everything that I've been doing. So I know that was still kind of vague a little bit because confidentiality stuff, but the idea of finding a business, and if you just took this as a business within itself, a business that is broken and is not as profitable, or in this case was actually losing money, and coming up with a new, fresh way of doing it, working with the team here, helping them figure that out, and relaunching. It's very rewarding to get to do those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with you or somebody on your team, what's the website?
So inspiredbusinessconcepts.com is my personal business website. My handle on almost every platform is John K. Jennings. There's a couple exceptions, but LinkedIn, Facebook, and those, John K. Jennings. And I'd love to talk to folks. Always open for a conversation. Always open for contacts. If anybody wants to learn more or talk about how we could work together.
Good stuff. And that's inspired with a D, businessconceptswithanis.com.
That's it.
Well, John, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Well, Lee, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your folks, and hopefully we'll have future conversations as I get my book ready to launch.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We'll see y'all next time on Coach the Coach Radio.